They mocked my small coffee shop until Starbucks offered $2 billion to buy us. The rain pattered softly against the large glass windows of her tiny coffee shop, creating a soothing rhythm that seemed to echo the steady beat of her heart. Clara sat at one corner table, absent-mindedly wiping down the already spotless surface with a damp cloth. The scent of freshly ground coffee beans mingled with the faint aroma of vanilla from the candles she insisted on keeping lit during business hours, a touch she believed made all the difference in creating an inviting atmosphere. When she first opened Clara's Corner 5 years ago, everyone told her it was a foolish endeavor. Her parents had pleaded with her to take the corporate job offer from Chicago, her friends warned her about the saturation of coffee shops in the city, even the local bank manager had raised his eyebrows when she presented her modest business plan. But Clara saw something they couldn't. She envisioned a place where people could find more than just caffeine, they could discover community, comfort, and connection. The shop itself was nestled between a bustling pharmacy and a high-end boutique on Main Street, its facade painted a warm terracotta color that stood out among the gray concrete buildings surrounding it. Inside, every detail reflected Clara's personality. Mismatched chairs gathered around rustic wooden tables, shelves lined with books available for borrowing, and artwork from local artists adorning the walls. She had poured every penny of her savings into transforming what was once a dilapidated storage space into this haven of warmth and welcome. At 32, Clara had spent most of her life feeling like she didn't quite fit into the mold society tried to press her into. Growing up as the middle child in a family of overachievers, she'd always been the dreamer, the one who preferred sketching in notebooks during math class or experimenting with recipes in the kitchen while her siblings studied for exams. Her love affair with coffee began during college, not because of the caffeine rush but because of the conversations it sparked. She remembered countless hours spent in campus cafes, watching strangers become friends over shared cups of espresso, witnessing moments of reconciliation between quarreling couples, and observing how a simple act of buying someone a drink could brighten their day. What set Clara's Corner apart wasn't just the carefully curated selection of single-origin beans or the homemade pastries baked fresh each morning, it was the way Clara treated each customer who walked through the door. She remembered names, favorite orders, significant life events. When Mrs. Henderson came in after losing her husband, Clara served her usual cappuccino with an extra sprinkle of cinnamon and a listening ear. When young Tommy started bringing his elementary school homework to the shop after school, Clara kept boxes of colored pencils behind the counter for him to use. These small gestures created ripples of kindness that spread throughout the community, drawing people back not just for the excellent coffee but for the sense of belonging they found within those four walls. Yet despite the loyal following she'd built, success hadn't come easily. Those first 2 years were brutal, the rent payments barely covered by meager sales, the sleepless nights wondering if she'd made a catastrophic mistake, the sting of seeing customers walk past her shop to enter the chain coffee stores nearby. The other business owners on Main Street would often gather at the monthly Chamber of Commerce meetings, where subtle jabs about her hobby shop would be exchanged over lukewarm coffee served in styrofoam cups. "How long do you think she'll last?" they'd whisper, their voices carrying across the conference room as Clara forced a smile and nodded along to discussions about marketing strategies she couldn't afford to implement. But perhaps the hardest blow came from her former best friend Madison, who now managed the Starbucks franchise 3 blocks away. They had grown up together, sharing secrets and dreams under the covers during sleepovers. When Clara announced her plans to open her own coffee shop, Madison had laughed so hard she spilled her wine. "You're going to compete with the biggest coffee chain in the world? With your little artsy-fartsy idea?" she had sneered, her words cutting deeper than any knife. Their friendship ended that night, replaced by a bitter rivalry that played out in increasingly aggressive promotional tactics and snide comments whenever their paths crossed. Through it all, Clara remained steadfast. She refused to compromise her vision or values, even when it meant working 18-hour days or taking on additional catering jobs to make ends meet. The turning point came unexpectedly, not through some grand marketing campaign but through a simple act of kindness. During a particularly harsh winter storm, when most businesses had closed early, Clara kept her shop open late, serving free hot chocolate to stranded commuters and offering her cozy space as a temporary refuge. Word spread quickly through social media, and soon people were making special trips to visit the little coffee shop that cared more about its community than its profits. As spring approached, Clara noticed a change in the atmosphere around her shop. New faces appeared regularly, drawn by stories they'd heard about the woman who ran the place where everyone knew your name. Local newspapers began featuring her story, highlighting how she sourced beans directly from sustainable farms and employed neighborhood teens who struggled to find work elsewhere. Even some of her previous detractors started showing up, sheepishly ordering lattes while complimenting her interior design choices. One particularly memorable afternoon, a young couple entered the shop, their eyes red from crying. Clara immediately recognized the signs of heartbreak and gently guided them to their usual corner table. As she prepared their drinks, she overheard snippets of their conversation. They were facing eviction from their apartment and didn't know where to turn. Without hesitation, Clara offered them the use of her shop's address for their mail until they got back on their feet, a gesture that sparked a chain reaction of support from other regular customers who pitched in to help the couple find new housing. These moments of human connection became the lifeblood of Clara's corner, weaving an intricate tapestry of relationships that extended far beyond mere transactions. Each cup of coffee served carried with it the weight of shared experiences, whispered confessions, and quiet acts of compassion. The shop transformed into something more than just a business. It became a sanctuary where people could shed their burdens, even if only for the duration of a cappuccino. However, the growing popularity of her shop also brought unexpected challenges. Competitors began copying her ideas, from the book lending system to the local artist showcases. Some days, Clara would arrive to find flyers for rival establishments taped to her front door, promising cheaper prices or flashier amenities. The pressure mounted as she watched neighboring businesses expand and modernize, while she struggled to keep up with basic maintenance costs. Yet through it all, she maintained her commitment to quality and authenticity, refusing to sacrifice the personal touch that had become her hallmark. Her resolve was tested further when a major development company approached her about selling the property. They wanted to tear down her beloved shop and build a luxury apartment complex, offering her a substantial sum that would have allowed her to retire comfortably. The temptation was almost overwhelming, especially on those nights when she lay awake worrying about the future. But each time she considered accepting the offer, she thought of Mrs. Henderson's grateful smiles, Tommy's excited chatter about his school projects, and the countless other lives that had been touched by her little corner of the world. The tension reached a fever pitch when Madison orchestrated a particularly aggressive promotion at her Starbucks location, offering deep discounts and loyalty rewards that threatened to drain Clara's customer base. For weeks, Clara watched as her regulars drifted away, lured by the promise of cheaper drinks and familiar branding. The stress manifested physically. Her hands trembled as she steamed milk, dark circles formed under her eyes, and she lost weight from skipping meals during busy shifts. Yet even in her darkest moments, she refused to engage in price wars or compromise her principles. Instead, Clara doubled down on what made her shop unique. She introduced weekly poetry readings, partnered with local musicians for intimate performances, and launched a community garden project in the vacant lot next door. Slowly but surely, her loyal customers returned, bringing friends and family with them. The shop became busier than ever, with lines sometimes stretching out the door during peak hours. What had once been dismissed as a quaint little experiment was now a thriving testament to the power of perseverance and genuine human connection. Then came the day that would change everything. As Clara was preparing for the morning rush, a sleek black car pulled up outside her shop. Two impeccably dressed executives stepped out, their polished shoes clicking against the pavement as they approached the entrance. The bell above the door jingled softly as they entered, their eyes scanning the cozy interior with a mixture of curiosity and calculation. Clara felt her heart skip a beat as they approached the counter, their presence radiating an aura of importance that made her palms sweat. "Ms. Bennett?" the taller of the two men asked, his voice smooth and professional. Clara nodded, forcing a polite smile as she wiped her hands on her apron. "My name is Richard Thompson, and this is my colleague, Elizabeth Chun. We represent Starbucks Corporation." The words hit Clara like a thunderclap, freezing her in place as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a casual visit from corporate representatives, it was something far more significant. Elizabeth produced a leather-bound folder from her briefcase, placing it carefully on the counter. "We've been monitoring your establishment's remarkable growth and community impact," she explained, her tone measured yet enthusiastic. "Your approach to coffee culture represents exactly the kind of innovation and personal touch we've been seeking to incorporate into our brand identity." Richard nodded in agreement, his eyes scanning the shop's warm interior with evident appreciation. Clara's mind raced as she processed their words. She had known that her shop's success had attracted attention, from local business owners, food bloggers, even regional news outlets, but this level of interest from a global corporation was beyond anything she had imagined. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same company whose local manager had mocked her dreams was now standing in her shop, speaking of innovation and community impact. "We'd like to discuss a potential acquisition," Richard continued, opening the folder to reveal documents filled with financial figures and legal terms. Starbucks is prepared to offer $2 billion for Clara's Corner, including full rights to your brand, operational model, and community engagement strategies. The number hung in the air like a physical presence, heavy and surreal. Clara felt her knees weaken as she gripped the counter for support, her vision momentarily swimming. $2 billion. The amount was so astronomical that it defied comprehension. With that money, she could pay off her parents' mortgage, fund scholarships for local students, support countless community initiatives. She could travel the world, pursue her artistic passions without financial constraints, live a life of comfort and security. Yet the thought of selling her shop, the place where she had poured her soul, where countless lives had intersected and transformed, felt like a betrayal of everything she had worked for. "I understand this is a lot to process," Elizabeth said gently, misinterpreting Clara's silence. "We're prepared to give you time to consider our offer. However, I must emphasize that this opportunity is unprecedented. Your unique approach to coffee culture has caught the attention of our highest-level executives. They see incredible potential in integrating your methods across our global network." The gravity of the situation pressed down on Clara as memories flooded her mind. She recalled the sleepless nights spent perfecting her signature blend, the joy of watching shy teenagers blossom into confident baristas, the countless hours spent counseling heartbroken patrons over steaming cups of chamomile tea. Every corner of this shop held stories, emotions, and connections that couldn't be quantified or transferred to another entity, no matter how powerful or well-intentioned. "What would happen to my staff?" Clara asked, her voice trembling slightly. "To our regular customers? To everything we've built here?" Richard and Elizabeth exchanged a glance before responding, their practiced answers doing little to ease Clara's growing unease. They spoke of generous severance packages, transition programs, and opportunities for select employees to join Starbucks' corporate team. But Clara knew that none of these promises could replicate the intimate community she had cultivated over years of dedication. As the executives continued their presentation, detailing marketing strategies and expansion plans, Clara's gaze wandered to the framed photographs lining the shop's walls. There was young Tommy receiving his first paycheck, Mrs. Henderson laughing during a holiday party, the entire staff celebrating their third anniversary with cake and champagne. These images represented more than just business milestones. They were testaments to human connection, resilience, and the transformative power of a single dream pursued with unwavering determination. The meeting stretched on for hours, with Clara fielding questions and requests for financial records, while her mind wrestled with conflicting emotions. Outside, her regular customers arrived, surprised to find the shop closed for the first time in years. Through the windows, she could see their confused expressions, watch as they checked their phones for explanations, and eventually drift away to other destinations. The sight filled her with a profound sadness, reminding her of how deeply intertwined her shop had become with the daily rhythms of the community. When the executives finally departed, leaving behind their proposals and promises, Clara collapsed onto a chair, her body heavy with exhaustion and emotional turmoil. The rain had returned, tapping against the windows like a gentle reminder of nature's cycles and the passage of time. $2 billion represented security, validation, and recognition on a scale she had never dared to imagine. Yet it also symbolized the potential loss of everything that truly mattered, the authenticity, the personal connections, the soul of her creation. For the first time since opening Clara's Corner, she questioned whether she had the strength to resist such a monumental offer. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon her shoulders, not just for herself, but for her employees, her customers, and the community that had grown around her shop. The decision before her wasn't merely financial, it was philosophical, emotional, and deeply personal. As night fell and the shop remained closed, Clara realized that whatever choice she made would define not just her future, but the legacy of everything she had built. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless contemplation. Clara found herself wandering through her shop at odd hours, running her fingers over the worn surfaces of tables where countless conversations had unfolded. Each familiar object seemed to whisper its own story: the chipped mug that Mrs. Peterson always used, the comfortable armchair where aspiring writers composed their first novels, the bulletin board covered with community event flyers and children's drawings. These weren't just pieces of furniture or decorations, they were vessels of memory, witnesses to the human drama that had played out within these walls. Her staff, sensing the gravity of the situation, rallied around her with unwavering support. Sarah, who had started as a part-time barista during college and had grown into the shop's manager, spent hours researching small business protection laws and alternative growth strategies. Marcus, the elderly gentleman who handled maintenance and repairs, shared stories of how he had watched generations of family businesses succumb to corporate buyouts. Even young Tommy, now 16 and working after-school shifts, offered his perspective on what made Clara's Corner special to the younger generation. The community response was overwhelming. Regular customers organized petitions and letter-writing campaigns, flooding Clara's inbox with heartfelt messages about what her shop meant to them. Local business owners, many of whom had once doubted her venture, now spoke out in support, recognizing the role Clara's Corner played in maintaining the neighborhood's character. A group of artists whose work adorned the walls proposed hosting a benefit exhibition to raise funds for expansion rather than sale. The outpouring of solidarity brought both comfort and complexity to Clara's decision-making process. Meanwhile, Starbucks representatives maintained their pursuit, sending daily communications filled with increasingly attractive offers and assurances. They proposed preserving certain elements of Clara's Corner's identity within a larger corporate framework, suggesting hybrid models that would allow some autonomy while benefiting from their global infrastructure. Each proposal was meticulously crafted, addressing Clara's concerns while emphasizing the potential for exponential growth and influence. Complicating matters further was the reappearance of Madison. Her former best friend-turned-rival requested a private meeting, arriving at the shop with an expression of genuine remorse that Clara hadn't seen in years. Over cups of Clara's special reserve blend, Madison confessed that she had been ordered by corporate headquarters to facilitate the acquisition, but found herself torn between professional obligations and lingering feelings of friendship. She revealed details about internal debates at Starbucks, where executives were divided about how aggressively to pursue the deal. "You have to understand," Madison explained, her voice trembling with emotion, "they've never seen anything like what you've built here. It's not just about the money or the brand, it's about proving that corporations can still create meaningful human connections. But Clara, you've done it organically, authentically. That's what they're desperate to understand and replicate." The admission added another layer of complexity to Clara's dilemma, forcing her to consider not just the immediate implications of selling, but the broader impact on how corporations approached community engagement. Financial advisors and business consultants, summoned by both parties, filled Clara's schedule with meetings and presentations. They spoke in technical terms about valuation multiples, market positioning, and strategic partnerships, but their words often felt disconnected from the emotional reality of what was at stake. One particularly memorable session involved a branding expert who enthusiastically proposed maintaining the shop's current appearance while gradually introducing Starbucks elements, a suggestion that left Clara feeling physically ill. Through it all, Clara maintained her daily routine as best she could, arriving before dawn to grind beans and bake pastries, greeting her customers with forced smiles, and staying late to clean and organize. Yet the strain was evident in her appearance. Her usually vibrant eyes were shadowed with fatigue, her movements slower and more deliberate. Even her beloved coffee tasted different somehow, as if the stress had seeped into every aspect of her life. The conflict intensified when local media caught wind of the situation. Journalists camped outside the shop, thrusting microphones toward Clara whenever she appeared. Social media exploded with debates about corporate greed versus small business integrity. Late-night talk show hosts joked about the $2 billion coffee shop, while business analysts dissected the implications of such an unprecedented offer. The attention brought both unwanted pressure and unexpected opportunities, offers from investors willing to help her expand independently, invitations to speak at entrepreneurial conferences, even inquiries about writing a book. Most challenging of all was managing her relationship with her parents. Having initially opposed her decision to open the shop, they now faced their own crisis of conscience. Her father, a retired accountant, spent hours poring over financial projections and risk assessments, while her mother called daily with reminders about retirement security and healthcare costs. Their concern was genuine, born of love and decades of practical experience, but it only added to Clara's emotional burden. As the deadline for her decision approached, Clara found herself retreating to the shop's storage room more frequently. Amidst the sacks of coffee beans and boxes of supplies, she discovered solace in the raw materials of her craft, the simple, unchanging essence of what had started it all. Running her fingers through the aromatic grounds, she remembered the pure joy of her first experiments with brewing, untainted by considerations of profit margins or market share. In these quiet moments, surrounded by the fundamental elements of her passion, Clara began to crystallize her thoughts about what truly mattered, not just in business, but in life itself. The weight of expectation pressed down from all sides: corporate ambitions, community hopes, personal dreams. But in the dim light of the storage room, surrounded by the tools of her trade, Clara felt something else emerging. It was a quiet certainty, a core conviction that transcended financial offers and market strategies. Whatever decision she ultimately made would need to honor this fundamental truth, this essential understanding of why she had started Clara's Corner in the first place.